The American Declaration of the Rights and Duties of Man, the Verkada Declaration, is the first human right document of its kind. It was adopted in Bogota, Colombia in April 1948, preceding the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UDHR, by months. And it states in Chapter 1, Article 1, every human being has the right to life, liberty, and the security of their person. Welcome to Security Today. We're back for another episode of the Security Today podcast, brought to you by your host, Uncle Baer. That's right, Uncle BAER _ on Instagram and Twitter, and at Security Today Podcast on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So check that out. This is the security industry's technician first podcast. We're bucking all the norms, we're giving unpaid opinions, and we're set on providing you the education and the brief news highlights that you need to continue to grow and hashtag be the better tech. I, Uncle Baer, aim to be your uncle in security, bringing you those resources that you can lean on a little bit. So give me a like, give me a follow, and subscribe to this podcast. Welcome back to another week. We're here. We're 3 weeks in, baby. Coming back out of the grave. Hey, zombie. You know what I'm saying? But no, where was he? I don't know. You can figure that out in the first episode that we dropped a couple weeks ago. And then last week we talked about education, which brings me to point you to BeTheBetterTech.com. This is the educational arm of the Security Today podcast, and we already have a course up there that you can enroll on called the Professional Access Wiring course, brought to you by Baer. That's right. If you need to know how to wire access control, then you're welcome. It's there for you to go get. Now, also, I want to talk about a little bit as we get into this week's podcast that this is the season of time to reflect. We're in winter. I know we hit New Year's, but come on, people. They removed a month from our calendar. No, I'm not going to get into it. If you know, you know. But we are in the year of the wood snake shedding and the year of the horse coming, and now it's time to slow down, breathe, and reflect a little bit, okay? ISC West is about to be here, like blowing your mind, you know what I'm saying? Wrecking your liver for some of you. It's too true. And it is now the time that I want to reflect a little bit on what we are doing as individuals and collectively as an industry. So one thing that I try to promote in this podcast is that we need to hold a moral and ethics standard to the things that we are creating and the things that we are implementing, the things that we are using, and the things that we are running, okay? That's very central to our industry being the best industry it can be. I want us to be excellent. I want excellent technicians, engineers. I want excellent, CSOs. I want excellent security professionals all across the board that are pushing this industry. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to have to kind of hold a moral and ethics standard. And I'll talk more about that. But that is something that we need to be focusing on. Also, I need you to share this podcast, okay? I need you to share. I need you to like. I need you to subscribe. I need you to leave comments. And here's the thing about comments is that if you can come in with a comment and be like, I hate this dude, that's even beneficial to me, okay? Because it gets people seeing posts, it gets people thinking. But if you want to come in and be like, hey, you talked about this week and I'm doing that, or it reminded me of when I did this in my career, that is really beneficial to the industry. We unfortunately, as modern humans, are spending like 7.5 hours on our screens every single day, and that most of that time can be ate up by social media. So if you are promoting the social media that is taking you as you consume and fold to the conformity of the tech-obsessed culture, I'm doing that. I know. I understand. We're in the same boat. At least start filling your feed and your engagement with things that help move your mind, help shift your gears, help build the curiosity. And so I need you to share. I need you to like, subscribe, follow. I need you to push it out there. I just need you to be like, hey, this idea came up this week on Security Today podcast, at Security Today podcast, and it got us thinking at our company. It got us thinking on our team that this is what we're trying to do. It doesn't even have to relate to what we talked about, but if it got you to jump there, then, giving a little comment helps the industry out. You're not helping Baer out. I riff and just blow time into this microphone 30 minutes a week so that it will actually cause a domino effect and cause people to start, thinking, becoming more excellent at what they do. So that's my little 2 cents for the intro this week, but let's talk about what we're going to talk about. All right, imagine if you ripped the recording sign off of Rockin' Robin's booth at the Squawk, but you pumped it full of Vecna's powers. We'll talk about that. That's a specific reference, and I'm not happy with how it all ended. I'm just not. Also, Jake Vole is a name that you need to know, and the wisdom flowing from his mouth is what you need to hear. But luckily, you listen to this podcast, so you're ahead of the curve already. Also, it wouldn't be Security Today if I wasn't out here on a moral high horse just throwing punches down at every little thing I could. But listen, I'm not that much greater than the next. I'm not maybe even greater than the next guy, but I do know that moral standard that I'm talking about is kind of central. It's not just central to the industry, it's also central to being good humans and causing us to live on a planet that is better. And so we'll get into it. But first, we give a shout out. Every single week, I bring a shout out. Remember that 7.5 hours you're spending? You need to be filling your feed with things that are promoting the things in your life and not the things that are taking and driving up the price of RAM because AI needs to show me like a horse on a rocket going to the moon, okay? Please follow the people that I shout out because it is going to be beneficial to you. You'll thank me tomorrow, right? This week's shout out goes to at SS and SI Dealer Network. Now, you'll see why they are getting the shout out here in a minute when we do our chit chat, but SS and SI is an upcoming distributor that is breaking the industry with honest, kind, sincere work. It was established all the way back in 2010, and SS and SI Dealer Network, it's an independent distribution company that offers competitive pricing, private labeling, fast shipping, marketing support, vendor programs, and funding options. With a 1 to 2 day ground shipping to more than 50% of the U.S. population, they are proud to support hundreds of system integrators nationwide. They understand that your brand is your reputation, which we talked about marketing last week on our shout out with at ignite.strategic, right? But your brand is as important. So what they have is a blessed and branded program where the things that you're putting in, they can put your logo on. So people are seeing more of you and more of what you're doing. They understand that brand is your reputation, and they're here to help with it. So you need to be following them on all platforms, but follow them at SS and SI Dealer Network on Instagram to get started and share a little like emoji on the post just to know that they heard you here. I only bring you the best. Trust me. And that's what I brought you this week. Let's get into the chit chat. Jake Vole is the founder and president of the SS and SI Dealer Network. I have had the great pleasure of meeting Jake and conversing with him several times throughout the years, and even intend to get him on this podcast with the Room Where It Happens segment. If you don't know, interviews I'm planning on starting in maybe a month and a half, like late February, early March, and we'll start to bring those segments back. The Room Where It Happens is where I pull on security professionals that are influencing the industry. We just hear about how they got into it. We hear about where they think that the industry is going, and I think it's really beneficial to get your gears turning and introduce you to people who are changing the face of our industry. So we'll try to get Jake on here as soon as possible. SS and I, the news publication, sat down with president of SS and SI, get your S's right, and they asked him for some advice. Let me tell you something. It's solid. And I only bring you solid advice, and you already know this. SS and I magazine asked Jake, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? And this was his response, quote, be patient. Early on and frequently through my career, I found myself frustrated by what seemed like slow progress towards reaching my goals. I was putting in the work, building strong relationships and growing my team, but I rarely saw the immediate results that I wanted. That end quote. I really appreciate this response because so many times you get a white collar, high end guy on some magazine interviewing him, and the blue blazer just feels like they have to come up with the most wisest answer in the land. Like, we need to know about the HIGDK ConvertiT's CEO and how he's a top notch philosopher about a rather behind industry, right? And they just word vomit some nonsense, okay? But Jake hits it real. And real recognize real, motherfuckers. Jake is a real one, and he simply just says, be patient. Now, there's a saying in my house, right, that goes, patience is waiting for good things to come. It's a great way to define often given commands from parents who say, just be patient, be patient. But without the description, how the fuck is a person who's only been on the earth for like less than 10 years supposed to know what patience means? So you define it. It's waiting for good things to come. And in the world that is moving at the speed of LinkedIn posts and algorithmic feed blowups of the most recent news, we've unintentionally lost the notion that you don't blow up in success overnight. Success is built in the trenches. It's built with time. It's built with sweat. And the waiting of that success to be built is where you and I must be patient. They also asked Jake Voll, what advice would you give to those looking to achieve success in the security industry? Excellent question. Voll's answer was, learning everything you can from people smarter than you, and be generous sharing what you know with others. And be kind. Given the choice, people will do business with, hire, and promote the people that they know, like, and trust. So the biggest asset in your career will be the network of people that you know, you like, and you trust, and also trust you. Top notch. This took me a while to even discover in my own career, but networking is your greatest asset. You won't be good at networking unless you can do three things. Number one, you have to be curious. You always have to be learning. It'll cause you to get into the room with other people who will begin to become your network and grow your career and create good things with, right? Number two, willing to share everything you know. That's a central piece of this podcast. That's a central piece of what I preach. And that is something that you need to be able to do. And number three, be kind. Another principle that's taught in my four walls, nice and kind aren't the same thing. You can be nice and hate someone. Trust me, he is looking at you, kid. But you can't be kind and hold hate. Now, the beauty is that kindness is a finite object. You can give it, you can remove it, but you should always start by giving it out of just respecting that they're human. If they don't deserve it, if they torch it, you remove it in elegance and you disassociate. You don't troll, you don't hate, you don't try to destroy. It's the warrior in the garden philosophy, but that's for another time. Jake nailed the questions. And if you aren't using SS and SI as a distributor, trust me, you're missing out. Plus, they brought Ajax to the market, and in my opinion, Ajax is the best wireless intrusion on the market right now. So like I said, real recognize real. Cool? All right, let's get into the product highlight. Artificial Intelligence Technology Solutions, Inc., along with its wholly owned subsidiary, Robotic Assistance Devices, Inc., RAD, announced the launch of RAM, the ROSA accessory module, a new inline hardware platform designed to bring agentic AI capabilities to existing security cameras already deployed across indoor environments. Now, I realize that sentence means nothing, and we use acronyms too much. But stay with me. RAD is a company that's creating autonomous robotic technologies that pair with existing security solutions. So they have like a roving patrol car, right? They have a RAD dog, like you've seen from Boston Dynamics, that hunts humans. That's hyperbole, by the way. They have like solar-powered trailers, firearm detection, and all of the like. But one specific product that they are bringing is RAM, an accessory module that is an inline hardware device bringing an already installed security camera, agentic AI, voice interaction, and autonomous response to indoor security cameras. It kind of looks like a black rectangle with two speakers on both sides and a screen that kind of displays this, in my opinion, beautifully 1980 graphic typeface design that can display words like warning or exit now. And their pitch is, quote, even with analytics layered on top, response is often delayed, manual, or dependent on human attention inside a monitoring center. So detection may happen quickly, but intervention usually does not. And by the time a situation is addressed, the moment has passed. Organizations are left with massive camera deployments that generate footage, not action. So RAM was created to kind of close that gap. Now, like aforementioned, it installs in line with an IP camera for response directly at the edge. Once it's deployed, cameras no longer are limited to observing, but they can now detect, speak, warn, and escalate in real time. All of this happens without changing the layouts, replacing the cameras, or rebuilding any systems. So basically, you slap this device in line with the camera inside. It sits next to the camera. It looks like a 1980s radio record sign, but it comes with the theory of 2026 AI intelligence. You use a rad SOC management software to interact with it that includes centralized config rules, schedules, responses, device health monitoring, and even event logging. It interacts with SARA, S-A-R-A, agentic AI platform. Some people might call it Sarah, but I'm elegant. To support escalation flows, allowing for verification and outbound comms. And the radio record sign comes with a speaker for voice warnings, built-in mic for two-way audio, and a visual alert through the dynamic LED sign that brings me back to my childhood. Now, this feels like something you needed to know about, and I dig it. So check them out at radsecurity.com, and like always, you're welcome. Let's get into the meat. All right. If we must, this week, the boy who lives is back to punch not just at the company that shall not be named, but the practice that they are following, which isn't uncommon across many technology sectors, I understand. Verkada is, needless to say, doing well. Alphabet's independent growth fund, capital G, this is a company that is the umbrella of Google, has led an investment that values Verkada at $5.8 billion, a $1.3 billion increase from their Series E funding earlier in 2025. The investment will accelerate their development of AI capabilities and come as they surpass $1 billion in annualized bookings. Now, that is more than 2 million Verkada devices deployed across 171 countries, bringing together video security, access control, sensors, intercoms, and alarms on a single platform. More than 30,000 organizations rely on Verkada's platform, not just to secure their buildings, but to run smarter, faster operations. I want you to put this on record that I said this, to show you that I'm fighting for truth and not just picking an enemy in my life like most do, but Verkada has done a lot right, and it is pretty. They understand aggressive sales in B2C and have used B2B to support those sales. They clearly understand design and architecture of technology, and they also know how to market, both down and upstream, as they clearly are positioning themselves, probably to sell at some point, to one of the tech giants, maybe even outside of our industry. That's a hot take. Sue me. Please don't. Please don't sue me. This isn't the first time that I've spoken about Verkada on the podcast, and I've deep dove into the genesis of their company and how I still, to this day, don't believe that they care even remotely about our industry as a whole. I have issues with how money has always been the goal and security is kind of the vessel to get there. UL 623868-1 isn't UL 681. That's all I'll say. The problem with this is, in a world where security is a right, not a privilege, you cut corners quick, and that at some point will be to the detriment of an innocent person. Rarely a detriment to your current valuation, I'll note that. Now, they are setting a standard on how technology needs to improve in our industry, and they're kind of like your best friend's Venezuelan cousin showing up for Thanksgiving and schooling you and your friends in backyard soccer, while also gaining the heart and eyes of your girl that you're crushing on, and it's a sad state of affairs. But all that to say, there is one thing that I want to talk about today, and that's the topic of Verkada's self-described lockout of the devices customers own, or the devices that customers own, and how it's one of the more controversial practices in the security industry. It may be overlooked by maybe the white-collar side, and the Blue Blazers on stage talking about what the next big thing is. But regardless, it is a polarizing move. There's a lockout email to customers that forfeit payment on the subscription. And in Verkada's words, they say, quote, failure to renew licenses by XX date will lead to an organizational lockout. Your devices will continue to operate, but your access to the footage, the events, and the settings will be lost. There's a big boy integrator called Convergent, and they are a major player in the game of security and life safety, and they are national. Convergent likes Verkada because they line up well with their business model. Very scalable, easily installed and controlled. So Joe Young, Convergent's VP, came to defend this controversial practice by saying, quote, no different than your utilities at home. If you don't pay your water bill, your water's not going to work. And if you don't pay your electricity bill, your electricity's not going to work. And if you don't pay your phone bill, guess what happens? Your phone doesn't work. End quote. Off the bat, this is actually a logical fallacy called false equivalence, where superficial similarities hide significant differences, leading to a bit of a flawed reasoning. For instance, utilities face heavy regulation precisely because of their monopolistic control, while Verkada operates with even greater control, but very little oversight. And even if you don't pay your phone bill, the device that you own, your phone, can still be used. You can use its camera, you can connect to free Wi-Fi, you can even use their emergency services. The controversy that comes into play with Verkada is that the camera or the access control you bought and own can become totally unusable, even in the event of an emergency. The other large risks that this runs is that as the company grows in funding and starts to begin to position itself and it gets absorbed into larger conglomerates, you are now at risk for higher pricing, reduced support, degraded product development, and even more. Now, that is all big what ifs, okay? I get it. But it should be a consideration when dealing with the security surrounding children's lives in public education, And that is something that the security professional should be vying for when selling to clients who are looking for security that surround children's lives, or anybody's life for that matter, right? Except the B2C has a silicon bro selling with Yetis and gift cards, and then money is just too sweet when it comes in healthy streams to the integrator as Verkada looks for you to install it. This unintentionally, I truly believe, it's unintentional, is cutting out the subject matter from the subject matter expert. So yes, an expert is installing it, but the client, schools, hospitals, public event spaces, never got the subject matter to guide them in not putting in something that could be obsolete with the click of a button from a billion-dollar company. It's degradation of the process because hanging maglocks and putting Rexes on doors isn't the full summation of providing security. Really degrades the process of putting security in anywhere. There's a critical foundation at the beginning of the security project, which is where a security professional, a subject matter expert, walks a client through the environment, which includes business continuity, brand, assets, threats, right? You can learn about that in the security theory course coming, and gives the greatest recommendation of what security is critical and what security is complementary. This is skipped when the manufacturer sells it, and the manufacturer is always going to be money first. They have to be, by nature, okay? The final problem with this structure that I'll address today is when what we just talked about happens at a tune of 30,000 organizations and millions of devices, we're now in the territory of having an effect on the industry as a whole. Our industry is a living organism, and if it begins to learn behaviors like the processes we've discussed, it will eventually lose its purpose and have a null effect on actually providing security globally. It weakens the robust fabric that our industry needs to be successful. Yes, our industry needs to grow. It needs to get with the times, right? But not at the expense of keeping the right to security first. And that can be shown by not locking out institutions full of children from even seeing live video, even in the event of someone massacring said children during a school shooting. You see, the lockout module is appetizing to tech giants on the hunt for acquisitions, but it's a shame that that model exists in our industry where security is a right and not a privilege. Bold words, Baer. And I want to hear the rebuttal because, like I said a couple weeks ago, I'm open to grow and change. I see this as a problem. If it's not a problem, please tell me why, because I want to know. But also, think about what we are doing when we are installing security. If we're putting them in a process or a system that has the ability for them not to rip out the NVR and put a new one in because they want to do business with somebody else, they should not lose what they've bought and own to protect the people, the property, and the places that they're trying to protect. Hot take, I know, but I just don't see the benefit of continuing to do that in an industry that is so viably important. And I worry that if accepted at a great rate, it'll encourage other manufacturers to behave in this way. And then we'll start losing open protocols, and a closed system is not a system that can grow. I mean, clearly it's a system that can be invested in, but is it a system historically that can grow and provide more to the industry that it is participating in? I just don't think so. That's it for the Security Today podcast. Remember to follow at SS and SI Dealer Network on Instagram. And don't forget that this podcast is hosted, edited, ran, created, and built by me and me alone, your uncle in security, Uncle Baer. So if you can help me out, please help me out. DM at Uncle Baer _ or Security Today podcast on Instagram with your thoughts, your stories, and your resources. Okay? I want to know. What do you think? If it's a rebuttal, it's a rebuttal, right? And we can hold different opinions. Let me say this one thing before I get off the mic here. I have a sincerely good friend who runs out of the Northeast, and Verkada is his basis for security in his company. He does well, very well, and he puts it in and his installs are excellent. In fact, it provides him and his family a good life. And that's what I want for him because he's my brother and I love him. And we can have differing opinions. At the end of the day, I'm not going to let it ruin a relationship, okay? It's not important to destroy the things around my immediate real life because I have an opinion on something that's different from those things that are there. And so him and I hold different opinions, and we can because we're mature, we're men, we're grown, right? And that's okay. But this is my opinion. So anyways, if you've ever tried any of the products that I ever mentioned or have any information on them, please let me know. DM me, comment about it, please. This podcast is driven by the interactions with fantastic technicians on Instagram, industry players on LinkedIn, and you know that I'm hooking you up with the resources. So go follow on Instagram at Be The Better Tech, the Security Today podcast's educational arm where I try to bring that education. And we'll see you next week on Security Today. Bye-bye.